All right, so we've got this clip here. This is an extracted clip. This is from a New York Times podcast. Was it? The Ezra Klein show. But this was posted by Club Talarico. It's called James Talarico Destroys the Myth of Christian Nationalism. By the way, I am a very strong opposer of James Talarico on primarily from a spiritual level. Actually, I'm a Christian, and he grossly misrepresents Christianity. He sort of like basically uses it as a coat or as makeup over whatever political policies he wants to advance, which, by the way, to be fair, Christian nationalists do this as well, but I think it's gross when both sides do it. But what I hate most about it is that at least a lot of people look at Christian nationalists and they recognize, hey, this is horrible, this is bad. You would think that, Jesus wouldn't stand for these things, I would imagine. That's like what a lot of even people in the world look at Christian nationalists and say, and I think that's good. I think it's fair. It shows that some people at least have some idea of what Christianity is supposed to be like. Meanwhile, they look at James Talarico, and just because he talks nice, they assume that everything he's saying must be godly and biblical. That's just not true, and I think it's deceiving and extremely deceptive.
Want a Christian nation unless it means providing health care to the sick, or funding food assistance for the hungry, or raising the minimum wage for the poor.
Welfare is not an inherently so this is exactly what I was talking about, right? So he's cloaking these political positions in godliness. He's like, if you're godly, you would support welfare systems, right? It's what all Christians would support. If you just look at the Bible, it says, give everyone food stamps. It's in the Old Testament and the New Testament. But that's just not true. That's just not true.
And so it seems like they want to base our laws on the Bible until they read the words of Jesus. Welcome the stranger. Liberate.
Right. Yeah, we welcome the stranger. We have a whole citizenship class that people take, and say, hey, welcome to the country. Here are our rules. Here's our culture. Here are our laws, right? So we welcome the stranger, right? Welcoming the stranger is a little bit different than being lenient to the invader.
The oppressed, put away your sword.
You liberate the oppressed. I don't know what law he's referring to there. Put away your sword. Bro, Jesus literally told the disciples to run around strapped because they were going to the hood. I'm not joking. Look, hold on. Wait a second. Wait. Hold on. Okay, here. So look, bro, Jesus literally says, y'all are going to the hood, get strapped so you don't get caught lacking. Okay. Supplies the road. And this is verse 35. It says here, and he said to them, when I sent you without money bag, knapsack, or sandals, did you lack anything? And they said nothing. Then he said to them, but now he who has a money bag, let him take it, and likewise a knapsack. And he who has no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. For I say to you that this is written what must still be accomplished in me. And he was numbered with the transgressors. For the things concerning me have no end. So they said, Lord, here are 2 swords. He said, it is enough. Does this sound like someone who would think that all guns and swords are bad? No. This man is an expert farmer, cherry picking whatever quotes and passages he needs to in order to, get his message across. And this is why I struggle to sort of view him as a Christian, because instead of being like, okay, let me let my Christianity drive my politics, or rather, let me use politics as a way to bring people to Christ. Instead, it's almost like he's using Christianity as an evangelical tool to bring people towards his political ideology.
Sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor. I mean, I'm not exactly sure a Christian nation is really what these people want. Again, I believe the separation of church and state is sacred. I think a nation...
And on that, I agree with James Talarico, absolutely.
With one supreme religion is not just un-American. I also think it's un-Christian.
I think when it comes to a supreme... I don't know what you mean by a supreme religion. You can have a predominant one. Christianity has been that for a while now. It's dying, but it's as a supreme religion. But it has served as that for quite some time now.
Given how Jesus taught about religious supremacy, But I do think if these people are going to call for a Christian nation, they need to reach for all of it. And that is, I fought the bill to require the 10 Commandments posted in every classroom. And I've often wondered, instead of posting the 10 Commandments in every classroom, why don't they post money is the root of all evil in every boardroom? Why don't they post do not judge in every courtroom?
It's a little bit of a disingenuous argument because I don't think he actually supports that, right? Because he's saying that we should have the separation of church and state. Maybe he's saying that's his counter argument to that law.
Why don't they post turn the other cheek in the halls of the Pentagon? Or it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. This is the inconsistency I'm trying to call out, because they're using my tradition. They're speaking for me. And so I think I have a special moral responsibility to combat Christian nationalism wherever I see it.
Now, I will say that, it does also anger me to see the Christian nationalists speak out. And he's a Christian nationalist in a different way. But it does anger me to see the Christian nationalists on the right sort of speaking as if they are the authorities on Christianity when they are probably one of the grossest misusers and abusers of biblical texts when it comes to how Christians ought to engage in politics. So I understand where he's coming from there.
Scripture says Christian nationalism wherever I see it.
So I guess it's skipped there.
You can't love God and hate other people. That's in 1 John. You can't love God and abuse the immigrant. You can't love God and oppress the poor. You can't love God and bully the outcast. We spend so much time.
No, but I think bullying and oppression is so awesome and cool. Hatred. I love hatred. Who doesn't love hatred? Everyone on the right loves hatred. That's like the best. What are you talking about? This guy's insane. You can tell I'm joking here. This is one thing I don't like about him too, and you'll see this on the left though all the time, is that they will use passive-aggressive, condescending language to sort of dismiss people who disagree with them as having certain hostile or evil views, right? So, like, for example, let's say you support the immigration let's say you support the enforcement of immigration law, for example, right? They'll say that you love oppression and you hate strangers and immigrants, right? But, they'll do that and be like, oh, you know what? I mean, the crazy thing is that Jesus said that, we should be nice to people. So, but you see ice and they're mean. It's like you're talking to me like I'm a child, while also, having like an understanding of Christianity that's even worse than what a child who was taught solid theology would have. Which is crazy because he went to seminary, and I was like, it sounds like this guy went to seminary just so he could get all the answers wrong. But apparently the people running the seminary did too, because they're like progressive Christians or whatever. So like there's that as well.
Looking for God out there, that we miss God in the person sitting right next to us, in that neighbor who bears the divine image. In the face of a neighbor, we glimpse the face of God. All of this is rooted in your tradition. All of the commandment to love God and love neighbor is not from Christianity. It is from Judaism. And all Jesus is clarifying as kind of a radical rabbi is that neighbor is the person you love the least. The parable of the Good Samaritan, maybe the most.
I don't think that was his point. I think his point is not like who's your neighbor. The question is, who isn't your neighbor? We're all members of the human race, so we all have some relative kinship, right? So, I think what Jesus was saying, when Jesus responded to the question of who is your neighbor, I don't think he was saying that to be like, oh, the person you like the least, that's your neighbor. The person you like the most, that's a distant relative. Like, no. I don't think that's what he was getting at. But I think that Jesus used an example of the type of person that you might not like by default as an example to challenge you, right? Because, like, for example, with the rich young ruler, when Jesus said, go sell all your money that you have to the poor and then follow me, there are many other things that rich young ruler needed to do in order to follow Jesus, right? But Jesus wanted to be provocative and test him to see if he would actually follow his commandments to the letter, to the letter, and therefore was like, hey, I know that this is one thing you really don't want to do. Do this for me. And he did it,
Famous of Jesus's parables is so, I think we forget in our modern context how shocking it was, because today being a good Samaritan just means helping people on the side of the road, which is good. You should do that. But for Jesus's listeners in the first century, the Samaritans were not just a different religious group. The Samaritans were their sworn enemies. And so he is pushing the boundaries on how we define neighbor and who we're supposed to love. Loving our enemies, I mean, again, it's become trite in a culture dominated by Christianity, but none of us actually do that. None of us actually love our enemies, even if we say we try to.
I disagree. James Talarico strikes me as someone who perhaps loves his enemies. There are a lot of other people. I love my enemies. There are a lot of people, especially in Christianity, who love their enemies. I think the problem is he's looking at policy. He's like, if you don't support this policy, that's not love. And so if you don't support this policy, you don't love your enemies. You don't love your neighbors. You don't love these people, that people, whatever. And so I think that's kind of the framework that he's probably looking at things with.
Yeah, I share the same revulsion that Christians in the halls of power are blatantly violating the teachings of Christianity on a daily basis and hurting our neighbors in the process.
I mean, to be fair, he violates them far worse. It's a little hypocritical to be like, oh, they don't follow the tenets of Christianity. I mean, neither does he. So like, you went to seminary and you didn't hear the story about, taking the speck out of your neighbor's eye? Interesting.